Welcome to our discussion about Songs Sung Blue.
Yeah, when you watch sci-fi and anime, you come to us and we'll talk to you about a movie about a tribute band for Neil Diamond.
That's right. Now, I remember when this came out because I'm biopics are kind of like westerns for me, where I'm like I don't really care for them, but everyone I've seen I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
But so when I heard about Songs Sung Blue, and I like Neil Diamond, I like Hugh Jackman, but I wasn't up for Neil Diamond playing Hugh Jackman, or yeah,
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman playing Neil Diamond.
Most of the people I think that saw their commercials for this
Yeah.
while they were scrolling their phone, I think just assumed that this was a movie about Neil Diamond.
Right.
And
Thought it was a biopic.
I actually had a friend through the pet heads and social media that I think I said something to that effect when I saw the trailer for the thing. And she answered me back, Carol, that this is all about like a tribute band from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It's like watch the documentary. It's like they're awesome, and I was like, okay, that's literally a tweet was why I even like looked at this a second time.
And interestingly enough, the whole reason I was even interested at all was you told me it wasn't about Neil Diamond. He wasn't playing Neil Diamond. He was playing
Yeah.
a Neil Diamond impersonator. But yeah,
We would have gone to probably see it even if it was just a Neil Diamond movie,
right.
because it's kind of I won't get into all of my music stuff, but I've listened to everything. I literally listened to everything. If you try to talk to me about music, it's like, what do you like? I'm like, everything, and that's not an exaggeration. But yeah, grew up and listening to oldies channels and stuff like that, which don't exist anymore, which ticks me off when you go anywhere. It's like, why is there nobody that plays like Motown or any of the old stuff?
Yeah.
There's no radio stations that
Yeah,
do that.
I was having a discussion about this the other day. Like growing up, like in the '90s, I remember there being like channels that were the rock of the '70s, '80s, and today.
Yeah.
Now those channels are just rock of the '70s, '80s, and the '90s.
Yeah.
They don't really do anything newer. And I was like, well, I was trying to remember if there were any channels in like the '90s that played like '50s music, because that's kind of what hearing music from the '70s is now, is like hearing music from the '40s in the '90s. And I do remember there being some channels that would play like sock hop type music.
Yeah.
But like,
There was
those
like
don't
a
exist anymore.
Q99 here out of Roanoke used to have like a Friday night like oldies thing, and like it was 50s and 60s, and if they creeped into the 70s, it used to tick me off. I was like a little kid, it's like that's not oldies. But because of all that, Neil Diamond is one of those things that's just kind of, he's in that category of almost like a James Taylor. Is just, it's in the middle of 18 genres, and
he has dubbed himself the jazz singer, and I was always like, that doesn't seem, as a casual Neil Diamond fan at best, that really doesn't seem to fit. A jazz singer?
I don't think I would.
Jazz is like Kenny G.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever refer to it as jazz, but yeah, I mean, if you want somebody that transcends anything, go to a baseball game. You sit there and watch people from every walk of life get up and sing "Sweet Caroline," and then what is that, seventh inning or sixth inning when they do that? But
okay. Apparently, there was a movie from 1980.
Yeah, it's called
The Jazz Singer.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was starring him. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I've always listened to it because my parents did, and I did the proper thing, and I've educated my children on older music, and my kids know as much Neil Diamond music as I do. So it wasn't a hard sell to get me to see this movie, because I've always been a fan of the music anyway. 2025 movie, directed and written by Craig Brewer. Craig Brewer has done Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, which is an awesome movie. The Footloose remake, which was unnecessary.
Yeah, Black Snake Moan was good.
Legend of Tarzan.
I never saw the Footloose remake.
Yeah. Legend of Tarzan, which was probably like the 18th version of Tarzan.
Is that the one with Skarsgård?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He also
never seen it, but I'm like, I think he'd make a good Tarzan. Okay.
I've saw clips of it in hotels when it was on cable stuff, but he also did the sequel to Coming to America, the Coming #2 America that they did back here 2020-ish somewhere.
Completely forgot that even existed.
That's actually not bad. I've watched that one. It was better than I thought it would be, but he did that random kind of, he did a few other movies outside of that, and he did a lot of TV writing. So that was the guy behind this thing. And he saw the documentary about the people this movie was based on is a 2008 documentary on Lightning and Thunder, which is this couple out of Wisconsin that covered Neil Diamond songs and just kind of became, the guy kind of looked a little bit like Neil Diamond to begin with.
Right.
So it was pretty natural that was the path that they went. But he saw this in 2008 and wanted to make a movie about it after seeing the documentary. And I guess in between all these other projects that he did and probably getting the funding and the backing to make a pretty obscure movie like this, it took till 2025 to do it. So
I'm sure getting actors like Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson.
yeah,
I'm sure that helped get it actually produced. Get
yeah,
a couple of big names on board.
yeah. Probably one of those movies that doesn't work very well if you don't get the right people.
Right.
And this was a pretty fortuitous, I guess, aligning of actors and actresses for this movie, especially if you actually knew the documentary and knew the people that they did. Excuse me. They did a pretty amazing portrayal of the story of these folks. Run through kind of what the movie's about real quick.
Sure.
It's about lightning and thunder. Hugh Jackman playing this guy named Mike Sardina, and Kate
Goes
Hudson.
by lightning.
Yeah. Kate Hudson playing Claire Cartwright. They both were performers doing local things, county fair type stuff. In the movie, they meet at the Wisconsin State Fair in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
A whole group of impersonators. There was like a Buddy Holly guy. One was like a James Brown guy, I think maybe. Yeah. I forget who else was there.
There was, of course, an Elvis.
Yeah.
And they wanted him to be who? Oh goodness, who did they want him to be?
Well, they had him step in with it was almost like a Motown type band.
Well, that was his regular job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was like a Patsy Cline impersonator, mm-hmm. And the way they kind of do it here is they kind of portrayed them meeting at the fair, and then
Don Ho. He was supposed to impersonate Don Ho, and he was like, "I'm not doing that. I'm going to be lightning." Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about the Don Ho.
I was going to say Don Knotts, but I was like, that's wrong.
A little different.
A little bit.
Background is, these are sort of Midwestern, just kind of average people. Claire is divorced, has a daughter and a son. Mike is divorced, sort of has an estranged daughter. He was like an ex-Vietnam tunnel rat. So he's a veteran. I think they even kind of start off kind of showing that he's in AA. So he's has troubles with alcoholism.
Yeah, I think that's how the movie actually starts.
Yeah. And then they get together and decide to start singing Neil Diamond stuff. And
yeah, because she recommends that to him. He's like, "You kind of look like Neil."
Yeah. I think they even hold up a record.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman did a pretty good job of
he did.
Kind of, whether that was all hair or there's a little bit of movie magic and implants or something going on there. They made him look like him. They start to play locally. They build a series of local successes. I think it was after getting accidentally booked at a biker bar where they got in a fight over taking the name of Neil Diamond in vain.
Yeah, I like how, because apparently he's a real life fan of Neil Diamond. He wasn't just hey, I'm going to impersonate Neil Diamond just because I kind of look like him.
Yeah.
He almost idolized Neil Diamond.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to start the Neil Diamond experience is what he would call it, because he didn't want to be an impersonator because he thought that was disrespectful. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to it's almost like a tribute band.
Yeah.
And everyone told him, you got to start with Sweet Caroline. And he's like, no, we're not starting with Sweet Caroline. We're starting with Saloon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I liked that because that's one of those songs. My parents had the Neil Diamond CDs and whatnot, and I would hear that, and I always thought that song was really, really cool. Yeah. I had no idea what it was saying, but it was fun.
It was one of those things that was kind of in the same vein for me when I was kind of growing up. It was almost like Paul Simon, where he started to do, again, all the stuff that you wouldn't be allowed to do today, where he was sampling and he was actually working with a lot of African musicians and kind of mixing that in with pop music. And it's how you get exposed to things that you've never been exposed to, was through stuff like that. Suleiman was that same kind of song. Mm-hmm.
But when they were at the bar, some people were like, sing Sweet Caroline and that kind of stuff. And someone said, Neil Diamond sucks. And he just went off on the dude.
And,
what'd you say?
the guy who was their manager, Jim Belushi, he did a great job in this movie. He was the guy that's kind of getting in their bookings and stuff like that, and he had the Wisconsin accent down. He's gotten much older too, so he probably had aged into this role pretty well. But yeah, he accidentally booked him in a biker bar. It's almost like Blues Brothers when they go to play at that place in Texas, and they sing Rawhide to those guys.
Dr. Dave Watson, his dentist. What was his deal? He was like their manager, wasn't he?
Yeah, he became. I think he became like their financial supporter. So he kind of backed a lot of their.
Okay. He's like the producer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he's the guy that
yeah. Jim Belushi. I like that scene where they were talking about working together, and then afterwards, Jim Belushi character, stood up and he had a bullhorn and he was doing like bingo or something. Really showed the scrappy nature of these characters, these people,
and the environment that this all happened into. Yeah. Just kind of, I think, kind of rural Wisconsin was probably a lot like southwestern Virginia, just flatter, same kind of people, a lot of farmers, and
one of the thoughts I had about just the character, the people themselves, is there's a certain humbleness to them, to where like at one point he was playing on a regular gig at like a Korean restaurant, and he put himself into it. Like I don't know if if Mike actually had any feelings of wanting to be greater than what he was, but as he was portrayed in this film, he was very he just wanted to entertain people. At one point, that's what he said. I just want to entertain people.
His dream of making it big was to be an act in Vegas.
Okay, yeah.
And I think they talk about that in the movie. They talk about it a lot more in the documentary. Yeah. It's kind of hard.
I think they mention it at one point.
I think when you watch the two, it does kind of start to meld
Bleed
together.
Yeah.
What happened in the movie, what actually happened. But yeah, I mean, that's a very like grounded goal. It's like I don't want to be like Elvis or Taylor Swift. It's like I just want to have like a 20-minute act in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, that's an attainable dream, and it's something that would still be a pretty big deal for somebody that's just coming from being somebody that came through the military and's been working little side gigs and stuff like that for all of his life. They get married. They kind of start to build popularity in that whole area. What really like opens things up for them is they get invited to it's like a summer fest or something
by Pearl Jam
to open for Pearl Jam. And Eddie Vedder just was kind of fascinated with them. And that actually was a real life thing. Mm-hmm. He comes out and sings. He wanted to come out and sing, I think, Sweet Caroline too. And it was against like, no, we're not singing Sweet Caroline. So he comes out and I think he actually, I may have that wrong. They wanted to, Eddie Vedder knew like a kind of a more quiet song. I forget which one it was. But he's like, no, this isn't that kind of crowd. We need to sing Forever in Blue Jeans. And Eddie Vedder didn't know the songs. They actually printed out the song for him on paper, and he sat there on stage with the lyrics on paper.
That's great.
And sang Forever in Blue Jeans with them. But just that exposure, I think that was probably in Milwaukee. It ended up getting them gigs in Chicago, and they kind of took off. They actually started making some money and getting.
Now in the film, what it seemed like, because the film is very, very much truncated.
Yeah.
Because I didn't watch the documentary, but I just looked up some facts of their actual life.
It really does condense kind of multiple things
like 12 years.
Spanned over time into a smaller period.
They were married a total of 12 years, and the amount of time that the movie takes place over, you could say two, maybe 3 years at most.
Yeah.
Because like the kids don't grow any, the son has braces the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's just a couple of years. Yeah. So the timeline after the Pearl Jam show, it was almost immediately that tragedy befell.
Yeah, and it was actually 4 years later when that happened.
So, yeah.
But yeah, 1999. And it's one of those things, this movie, for just being a small movie about these things, really takes you on a roller coaster ride of just, emotions going back and forth, where you're like, you see some of the tragedy that kind of surrounds their life and their situations. And then it's like, oh, they're starting to win. And then like something happens.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh no. And then something good happens and they kind of recover and they keep fighting back. That's really what kind of endears you to this movie, is the way these people just fight just for what would be considered table scraps to, somebody that's really famous. Yeah. But in 1999, she's out. They live in a lower middle class neighborhood near a highway. She's out working in her garden in front of her house, and a old guy just like falls asleep, runs through a stop sign coming almost like perpendicular at their house, and just blows the stop sign, comes across, runs over her, smashes her into the house, and
Takes her out.
um,
Takes her leg.
yeah, I think I've seen like the local news reports on that. I think some of that's in the documentary. She was like pinned up under the car. I think they thought she was dead, and they were kind of like, "How do we get this car out?" And I was like, "She's still alive." It was like it was. I think it was like so
Jeez.
rough looking. There, people were like, I looked at it, it's like, oh wow, she's gone. And it was
Wow.
like she was actually up under there, but it took her leg off below the knee. And in the movie, um, again, kind of truncating things.
Yeah.
Mike has a stress heart attack.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's on the same day, but right there around the same time as all this from all this happening.
Well, we saw a little bit in the film. We saw a little bit before when he was trying to start a mower. He kind of had a cardiac event, and he recovered from that. Just like got himself together. But in the hospital where Claire's being worked on, and they're trying to save her life, he has a cardiac event, and he takes Rachel into another room, and he's like, you've seen the show you like, right? ER, with the doctors. And he turns on a defibrillator machine, and he's like, when I go out, put one here and put one here and shock me. And he's trying to like explain to her how to do it, and he falls over. And
I forgot about this. It's been since back when this came out that I've seen this.
Yeah.
So
and she buzzes him back to life.
Yeah, and it's again kind of showing what it's like to kind of work your way through doing little odd jobs and stuff. You don't have insurance, and he knew that. And he knew they couldn't afford, especially when this happened to his wife, that they couldn't afford anything else. So I mean, he was just kind of like toughing his way through, basically having heart attacks for years. Just like, I don't have the insurance. I can't go to the hospital on this, which is it's a real struggle for lots of people, that kind of thing.
I wish I had written it down. There was a wonderful quote about insurance, about being broke. Yeah. Keep going. I'll try to find it.
Yeah, she survives the surgery, all that stuff. But of course, like anything where she lost a leg, is in all kinds of pain. She gets on pain medicine. She gets addicted to that, gets depressed. Eventually has a mental episode, and she actually checks herself into a mental hospital. I think she just like at one point was like out wandering around the yard, and they thought she was going to wander off. So some of the sort of, not dementia, but things that happen when you're taking a lot of pain medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of stops doing the whole singing thing because he just only wants to sing with her. And he also has to kind of work more regularly to support her and all of the bills that she has. And of course, in the middle of all this, her daughter gets pregnant.
Yeah.
And again, it's taking it down that this is what real people actually go through. This isn't a...
And that's one thing that really, the little quip that he made when he was talking to the insurance lady. He just said, "Insurance, we're broke as a joke." I was like, I've never heard that phrase before. I like it.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that struck me when I was watching the film is stories are built upon the hardships that you put the main characters through.
Yeah.
And the hardships that this family went through, and like you were saying, just to get what other people would consider scraps.
Yeah.
Is inspirational. I mean, they went through a lot, and
I could go through.
They fought.
People that go through these kind of things that I've dealt with for years, getting called to people's homes and places you wouldn't normally go as a police officer, and seeing people live way worse than this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and fight these kind of things every time you turn around, because they're poor and they don't have answers. You have to deal with whatever happens to you. And she gets pregnant, the daughter gets pregnant immediately. It's like, we can't do this. But she's also, I think they kind of, they don't talk about a lot in the movie, but I guess you see a lot of things that, these are pretty traditional people. I don't know that you'd call people that go around and sing in clubs and drink and smoke necessarily great Christians, but I think they at least had that background.
Yeah, salt of the earth is what we call them.
And they're like, they don't even consider, we could just abort the baby, because that's what most people would do. And she's like, I
wasn't paying attention to social issues around the time this film was made.
Yeah.
I was, in high school and college and stuff, so I wasn't really a part of I didn't hear what other people were saying, but was it like in the late 90s and early 2000s? I mean, I know abortion was available, but was it
Yeah,
something that your average person would think of?
I don't know, because at that time I would have been in,
In
in high
college?
school,
Yeah.
going into college.
Yeah. So it's, yeah,
But
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I mean, abortion's been a thing for time immemorial. I mean,
yeah,
it's been forever. But I just don't know if that's something
I think
that
it's
your
just
average person would consider.
I think it's magnified as an issue because of social media now.
Oh, of course, well,
But
everything is.
it probably was more of
Everything
that
is.
sort of quiet thing that you went and did. And you didn't make a big deal over it, and you didn't go shout to your friends about, look what I just did,
Right.
because it was frowned upon, as it should be. But she immediately recognized, like, I can't raise this child, so
I
they're just
liked
going to find another family for her to.
the moment that Rachel told Mike that she was pregnant was when she was having to get to work, and her car was overheating, and he was showing her how to do a patch job. He had this liquid that would
Yeah,
put this material into the radiator, and it would solidify and patch up the hole. And they were talking about life in general and whatnot. And she told him, I got to tell you something, I'm pregnant. He was like, how far along? 4 months? And it's like, I can't believe I didn't notice. It's life. I mean,
yeah,
and he was like, he broke it down using his military training. He was like, okay, well, what's the situation? All right, so what are you going to do? Okay, so who's going to help you do that? Then help break the problem down to smaller things to consider that helped her come to a decision and make a plan. It was a great moment that showed the relationship between the two characters.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just little things like that kind of show that at least the people that made this movie, going back in and kind of researching these people's lives of what it's the struggles that you go through, is that, the fact that he was getting some, like, the cheapest thing you could get to patch a hole in a radiator.
Yeah.
You just don't go take it to a mechanic and fix stuff. People didn't have a lot of money. You had to figure out ways to patch stuff to keep your car running so you could make it to your jobs. And so that's the everyday struggles that a lot of people in all the flyover parts of the country, with air quotes around flyover,
Yeah.
um, that's just how they live day to day. And it's not one of those things they complain about. It's just the way that things are. And so they start working on this plan to give the child to another family. She gets a prosthetic leg, and she's kind of working through being able to use
You
that.
see her struggles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I had a great uncle that just up the road here, that way back, I think in like the 50s, maybe early 60s, rolled a lawnmower over on himself
Oh goodness.
and had his leg cut off at basically the same place when he lived down here on a turkey farm with nobody around, and basically crawled from his upper farm where he had the garden and stuff up there all the way back down to his house so he could get to a
Geez.
phone to call just somebody local. Can you come get me and take me to a doctor?
Wow.
Because there wasn't like an on-call rescue squad or
Yeah.
anything. And he, from the whole time that I knew him, he had that, and he dealt with sores and all sorts
Oh.
of pain, and you get that like ghost
Phantom
limb
pains.
thing where
Mhm.
you think the leg is there, and it hurts and it itches, and just all these weird things that you just don't think about. And
There was a great scene early on after she had gotten the amputation where she got up. She was in the middle of the night and she got up and she went to just get out of bed, and she just forgot she didn't have
yeah,
a leg, and she just
fell.
fell straight down.
I won't get into too many stories with him. One that we loved from my Uncle Marshall, his fiberglass leg had a hole in it for ventilation.
Mm.
He got pretty good at walking around with it to where you didn't know. But we would go to restaurants, and he was always looking for like little kids, and he would find a little kid sitting at a table and get his attention and like pull his pants leg up and stick like a straw through the hole. And you'd see like these little kids like freak out, and they'd like pulling on their mom's like shirt. It's like, that man's got a hole in his leg. And of course everybody would like look, and he'd be sitting there just eating his dinner, and he'd look up at him like, what? And we'd all be sitting there trying to keep a straight face because we saw him do that every time we went into like go eat with him and stuff. But he had a good nature about the fact that he'd lost his leg. But anyway, she gets the prosthetic leg. They start performing again. Kind of start to rebuild their fame a little bit.
Yeah, it shows a little bit of her struggles and whatnot, but once they get through that, because at one point Mike had like given up on the dream kind of thing,
Yeah,
and that kind of kicked her into gear, or at least was a part of what kicked her into gear to let her know he needs you as well. You need him, yes, but he needs you.
That's one thing they did, and it's very visible through the documentary and the movie both, is his commitment to her, and it was about her and not not just his, so much things with fame as probably the different level that these people are working on is it's all about me and it's people that are self-obsessed. And he was like, no, it's like, the fame, I'll throw it away in a heartbeat if I need to for her. Yeah. And it's kind of another thing that kind of endears you to this whole story of these folks.
Do you recall from the documentary the amount of time between her getting into her accident and them going back on, like, getting back into it?
I've got that kind of grouped into a thing here at the bottom.
Okay.
I'll see if I can fish that out when we get down there to that.
Yeah, because in the actual film, it seemed like it was just a few months. That's what it seemed like. And
I think it was some time.
It was significant. Yeah, because while we were watching the film, I was thinking when they were having their comeback, that's what they have a comeback tour coming up and whatnot. I was like, well, they haven't been gone so long that people have forgotten about them, so that's good.
She was hit in 99. Mm-hmm. He died in 2006. Yeah. So it's 7 years maximum, start to finish there on that leg of that.
It was probably a few years between the comeback tour and that.
And that's when they get the regular gig. Mm-hmm. I couldn't remember what was it, Korean or Chinese?
Korean.
Okay. Korean I couldn't remember which type of restaurant it was.
Because the dad liked Suleiman.
Yeah. Half the time, they're sitting there playing to 13 people sitting there, and sometimes they would, I guess, have a karaoke night and it would kind of fill up, that kind of thing. But
yeah, he would. It was like he was the host of karaoke, and a part of the agreement was one day a week they let him just perform his Neil Diamond stuff.
Yeah. And that rebuilding of fame, getting a little bit of news coverage again, kind of gets them to where local radio and everything, they end up headlining at the Ritz on the same night that Neil Diamond is sold out to having a sold out performance in Milwaukee.
Yeah, his performance is sold out, and what they want to do is they want to have him do the Neil Diamond Experience show for people who couldn't get into Neil Diamond.
Like the radio
and
people
they sell
were promoting
that out
it. It's
too.
like, hey, if you couldn't get tickets to go see Neil, then come see this. And so it sells out. And then going into his continuing heart trouble, he has a heart attack before the show and falls in the bathroom, hits his head.
Cracks his head open.
They still perform. And then,
glues it together with nail glue. Glues his skull together.
Then he goes to, there's a rumor that Neil Diamond comes to this custard place whenever he's in Milwaukee, and they kind of, excuse me, they kind of truncate that story too into this, that as soon as this show's done and Neil's show is done, that they're going to go to the custard place and meet Neil.
And it was essentially like they pulled up to meet Neil.
She gets out and is talking to all the fans and taking pictures and stuff, and Mike dies in the car.
And as a viewer, and knowing that this is based on like real life, it was actually a pretty tense moment.
Oh yeah,
because you're sitting there thinking, okay, he's cracked his head open, he's actively having heart attacks. Mm-hmm. Is he just going to die on stage? And it was at that point I was like, I'm not going to look it up. I was like, I put my phone down. I'm not going to look up this information. I waited until after I watch it to actually look up, well, what actually happened.
Yeah.
And because I think like if someone was writing this film, I think he would have died on stage.
Yeah.
If that would have been a more like traumatic thing to happen for everyone.
This was pretty bad watching it.
Yeah.
You're just like, maybe he's okay. And it's like, no, he just died.
Yeah. And do you want to go into the actual life?
Yeah. And I kind of hit big points of it.
Do you have the points of like difference or?
Yeah.
That was
no. Go ahead.
That was the big thing that I wanted to know. I was like, well, did that actually happen? Was he supposed to meet Neil at the end of his life and everything? And that was pretty much the thing I learned was his head injury and his death were like 4 weeks apart.
Yeah, they didn't happen at the same the same time that Neil was performing in that area. So
and
they put those together to make it a more dramatic ending to the
right.
It's
definitely more dramatic. It's his big night. He can't let everybody down. But in real life, he
fell and hit his head before a show in 2006.
It doesn't say it was due to a cardiac thing, was it? All it said is he fell and hit his head.
He said it fell and hit his head. I think you're assuming that most of those issues that he was having were heart related at that point. He hit his head. He played the show that night, and then he went and played a show a week later, and then was really feeling like lousy by the end of that one. So he went to the hospital, and they found out that his brain had been bleeding the whole time.
He went into a coma, right?
They went into surgery and tried to repair it, and he died in surgery.
I read that he went into a coma and he never came out.
Well, they did surgery. He may have gone into the coma. one of the things also just said that he died during the surgery. Maybe they did the
Gotcha.
surgery after he was in the coma. I
Right.
don't know
To
the
try to
order.
fix it.
Yeah. Neil Diamond was coming to Milwaukee, but that wasn't at the same time. It was pretty soon. It was close to that because while they're at the hospital, they were excited about trying to get him out of the hospital and go meet him at the custard place. So that's where
Oh, so that there was actually some plan for them to meet.
they were going to try to contact him and try to arrange a meetup.
Because one of the things I read was throughout their life, these two had gotten in trouble multiple times for like trying to sneak backstage and stuff to meet Neil.
Yeah.
So it was something that he really wanted to do. He really did want to meet Neil, because like in the Song Sung Blue film, it's more of a there's an opportunity, so he's going to take it situation. It's not like a thing he's actively trying to do.
Yeah.
And in real life, it seems like that was something that he actively wanted. It was like a goal of his to meet Neil.
Yeah.
And never happened.
Yeah, the reality of the movie and stuff, it was all kind of fact based. It was just that they, like I said, they truncated a lot of stuff just to make it fit into
fictionalize it, make it a little more compelling as a narrative. Yeah.
One of the interesting things is like Mike was not just a Neil Diamond impersonator, whatever dude. He had a cover band. When the two of them met, he was actually mostly doing Bon Jovi covers.
Oh.
The band was called Positive Traction, and she followed the band and actually had auditioned to join it. So
Claire?
Yeah. So it wasn't like they were just two performers that happened to accidentally meet.
She mentions in the film about knowing, like, I don't know the exact, maybe that was what she was talking. I don't remember the lines, but she mentioned knowing him before and being infatuated with him.
Yes.
So
that was true. It was because she followed the band and I think was kind of had a thing for him just from seeing him perform and was trying to join the band. She actually is the only one that ever met Neil Diamond. She met him backstage in 2008 after Mike had died, because there's several things that happened that kind of got attention to them from Neil Diamond. Most of it was post Mike dying. Right. I had a couple of other factual notes that there was another car that hit the house just like it did in the movie. They showed in the movie another car
came by. Yeah.
I think in the movie then, like, she's gardening and she gets up and goes inside and like it hits it,
but by a couple seconds. Yeah. And that's actually, she talks about having like a moment of clarity or something like that.
Yeah.
And that is the moment that gives her that clarity of like, you know what, you could die at any moment of anything.
Yep. Yeah. A car came in and hit the house in the exact same place 2 years later.
I want to know, because I've heard of like down in Hampton Roads at one point on the news. There was a house that kept getting hit, and the reason it was getting hit is it was like an off ramp from the highway, and people would just come off the highway just blazing, and they wouldn't realize the turn was as sharp as it was, and they would just try to turn and they couldn't, and they just barrel right into the house. I'd love to know if that's kind of like the situation.
I've driven around rural Wisconsin because that's where my wife is from, and you go up there and you think everything is like in squares, and you're like, you see wrecks in the wintertime, and you're like, how in the world do people wreck up here? Because we drive through the mountains all the time and we don't wreck.
Right.
It's like these people are driving in straight lines and they can't stay on a road. But it really is, when you're driving, if there's nothing else going on, it's mind numbing. It's mesmerizing. And they have the big rumble strip things in the pavement as you come up to every stop sign there, usually like 4 or 5 in a row, because because if not, it's so easy to just be like driving along.
Hypnotized.
I'm pretty sure I've run one up there before, because you're driving along and you're like, oops, was that a stop sign? I'm like, oh, wow, I just went through a 4-way intersection at 55 miles an hour. It's that kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's a reality up there. She was a consultant on the film, and the kids are adults, of course, now. They came along, so they actually were involved in a lot of the making of the film, and she did get compensated for it, which is cool.
Good, I'm glad.
I was the same way. I was like, man, did you do all this? Like, Hugh Jackman and everybody was like, they got a lot of press for this, and it being like this cool, like that they were doing the story on these people. I was like, it's cool if they got something out of it. If you're just taking advantage of their story, then it's not cool. But they actually were. One of the cool things from the documentary is I don't remember if they portrayed it in the movie at all, but Eddie Vedder staying involved with the family.
Oh, no.
Where was it?
Yeah, because in the film, in the Song Sung Blue, Rachel was like really excited about getting to meet Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
And then they have the event where they play with Pearl Jam, and then that's pretty much it. You don't really hear of him afterwards.
He heard about Mike dying
Hmm.
and sent them. It's like a Gibson, like Everly Brothers guitar. Is like a super expensive guitar that he'd actually played on stage with like Neil Young and with like somebody else. I forget who. He sent it to her with he wrote like a 2-page letter to her, and she read the letter on the documentary and just that he. Um, and that was kind of cool that he actually. I think she had the guitar at the funeral. I don't know if she had her daughter read some of the letter and stuff like that too. So um, when they were making this documentary, Greg Kohs, Kohs, is the guy that made the documentary. Um, when they were getting to release this thing at the first film festival, Neil Diamond's publishers had sent a cease and desist
Oh no!
to be like, you don't have the right to use any of our music. Vedder called Neil Diamond and got his publishers. Neil Diamond didn't. That's one of those things you always hear that
Yeah,
this artist does this. It's like, no, the artist didn't do that.
it's the lawyers.
His managers and his lawyers and his all these jerks that take all this money from people do stuff. Vedder called Neil Diamond and said, "Can you get your publishers to back off these people because they just want to use this music in the documentary?" And Neil's like, "I didn't tell anybody they couldn't do that."
Yeah.
And he called his publishers and apparently kind of tore them a new one and was like, "What are you doing?" So the two of them actually stepped in and let them get the documentary released. It wouldn't have been able to be shown anywhere because it had the music all the way through it.
Right.
They would have just had to kill the documentary. So documentary doesn't get made. This movie doesn't get made. And like I said, that was, I think that contact was why she was invited to come to Neil Diamond show and come back and meet him backstage in 2008.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I couldn't find my notes there. Sent her 2 pages letter and the guitar. Mike had, when he had met Eddie Vedder, I think Eddie maybe had that guitar there with him, and he let him use it when they did that opening act with them. And Mike had just said, "Man, that's a beautiful guitar. I've always wanted something like that. I just can't afford it." And Eddie remembered that. That's why he sent the guitar to them. So a lot of cool, real life stuff that happened with this, and I think that's what the attraction was for me with this movie was just how normal the people are, and how it wasn't any kind of like fabricated Hollywood ideas of what people go through. This is like what actual people go through. Just the random struggles that they had, and making the point for the third time, it's like they weren't trying to be Michael Jackson. It's like they just wanted a little piece of fame, and she talks about, like, she said the marriage to Mike, the birth of her children, and being on stage in front of 30,000 people with Eddie Vedder were the 3 high points of her life. And yeah, that's little things have a big impact on people, and a lot of people don't think it's that big of a deal, but when it's a high point of somebody's life, it is a big deal.
It was a wonderful film, and it's one of those films that I don't know if there's a particular audience for. I just think it's a good film.
Yeah. If you just want a movie that just kind of makes you feel good about life and has a little bit of kind of those things that kind of renews your faith in that there are good people out there.
Something that's shows people struggle, shows people overcome, something that can give you a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah.
And more on the technical side, it is a beautiful film. Like the cinematographer or the director did a great job, but a lot of people complain because of like a lot of big budget films nowadays, like they're just washed out. Like the lighting is just terrible and all that. But this looks like a movie that could have been made like in the 90s. It's a very rich looking film.
I will give it the stamp of my wife. She approves. She verifies the authenticity of the 1980s hair.
Oh.
She was watching the movie and was like, she would say, I can't remember the names, so and so, she had jeans just like that. Like they actually went through, did their research, understood, probably got that from Claire and some of those, and having the kids involved of what were people wearing at this time and all that kind of stuff. My wife grew up in 80s Wisconsin, and she can verify the authenticity of what they did with the film.
One of the things I remember,
hair and all that stuff.
I remember thinking while I was watching the film, because at some point early in the movie, they were watching TV and they were watching The Nanny. And I was like, wait a minute, because you're right. It's like 80s
Yeah.
chic, really. Like it's all 80s style and everything. And I was like, when does this take place? And that's a part of it is the movie kind of truncates a decade of time.
Yeah.
And so it's got this, it does have a kind of timeless quality.
Yeah.
It's more indicative of the era and not like specifically. It's like the 80s, like almost like late 80s to early 2000s. That's kind of all mushed together.
One of the realities of Southwest Virginia and rural Wisconsin and a lot of other places is that what's popular in 1984 in Los Angeles sometimes doesn't make its way even to a place like this until 87, 88. And you can go to JCPenney and get those, what used to be the trendy thing. You can get it on sale.
I've seen like memes where people are like, what you think the 90s looked like, and it's like Saved by the Bell style. And it's like, well, what it actually looked like, and it's like Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
You know, it's that's true. That's true. It's people don't change their style up every 5 years. It's, a lot of times a family will get one style. I mean, I know like my house, I think that we've really changed like furniture and all that like once since we've been there. We lived in there 20 years.
I grew up. I was the younger child, so hand-me-downs. I got to see what I was going to eventually be wearing by watching my brother wear it.
Yeah, right. But anyway, it's a great film. I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad you mentioned it to me, because if you hadn't mentioned it to me, I don't know, because my wife watches a lot of films, and I'm just like, I don't want to watch that. But I was
we saw this in the theater, and it was again this and Sheep Detectives, I think, were the two where I was sitting there just watching.
You're just watching Hugh Jackman films. That's what it is.
Watching everybody in the theater just freaking break down all over the place, and my wife and my daughter are just sobbing, and I'm like, I got our money's worth out of this one.
Yeah, this will jerk some tears. That's for sure. All right. Well, that's our discussion on.
That's our course number one of Blue stuff.
Yeah, that's our first Blue.
We'll be coming back with a
song sung Blue. We're going to talk about Perfect Blue next.
Come back with a little less uplifting Blue after this.
Yeah. We'll be back.